Okay. I just find that this morning Ukraine Foreign Minister Kuleba, he
Mm.
resigned. What's your take on that? What why?
Well, I've heard the story that even Zelensky has come to realize that Kaluba is damaged goods, and that apparently the final straw was his meeting with Wang Yi. Now he went to China. He talked peace, even as the Ukrainians were preparing for the Kursk incursion. In other words, for more war.
Mhm,
I don't say that he exactly lied in Wang Yi's face, but he was trying to
mhm,
string Wang Yi along.
mhm.
Um, the Chinese, I've heard this from many quarters, are absolutely furious about this. And Zelensky, who's now seeing everything fall apart around him, needs a new foreign minister because he understands that if he puts up Kuleba to talk peace and to try and arrange conferences and to persuade China and India to participate, well, they'll all be slamming their doors in Kuleba's face because he's not wanted.
And also, they're saying that there's a reshuffling in the Ukrainian government. Isn't that another sign that the war is not going very well? Otherwise, why do you need to reshuffle if everything goes well, right?
Well, it's exactly what's happening. It's a somewhat mysterious reshuffle because the kind of people that you're seeing are not the really top people in Ukraine. It's like what we say in Britain, it's rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic after it's hit the iceberg. I mean, that's what it looks like to me.
A few more thing about Putin's visit to Mongolia is kind of
Mm,
interesting. Now, clearly, he defies the ICC, right? So in
yeah,
China, the Chinese media see it that way. Now, China has not been particularly happy with Mongolia for a while.
no,
Mongolia just recently stopped recognizing the Chinese driver's license,
yeah.
which I don't know why, because China is Mongolia's largest trading partner. So
Mhm.
driving the things, transporting it back and forth is very important, plus the tourism, etc. So it's clearly very unfriendly towards China when Mongolia does that. And also recent, not too far long ago. So Blinken visited Mongolia, Mongolia foreign minister visited the US, and they were even discussing something like setting up a US military base, which I don't understand. Okay. And then also talking about some so-called open skies agreement. I mean, they have to have the sky, from China or Russia to open in order for them to open sky with the US. But nonetheless, all these things that made China not particularly happy with it. So some people in China also feel like Putin's visit, of course, we talked about to send a warning to Japan, but the fact that the defined ICC basically making Mongolia to take a stand because you either supporting full-hearted with the West or you should stand with the China Russia. So I think that's a message as well. What's your take?
That is exactly what it was. If you look at all these comments and statements and this very long article that Putin wrote for the Mongolian media, he always does this, by the way. It's a very much a characteristic of Putin. He writes these long articles, which are not always easy to read, by the way, because they're very long and they're often very technical. But if you go through it, he's basically telling the Mongolians, look, we are your friends. We have always been your friends. We've had a good relationship with you since the 1920s. Um, what are you doing? What are you doing wasting time with the Americans and people like this? It's with us and ultimately with China that you trade. Your place really is in the BRICS. Look at the geography. We need to build this gas pipeline, power Siberia to China, and you're the obvious transit route. So what are you doing? Messing around with Rome statutes, the ICC, inviting Blinken to go there, when the people who really matter, the people you really want to be on good terms with, is ourselves and our friends, the Chinese. Um, it's the kind of message which the Mongolians will take from Putin because there's been this very long relationship between Mongolia and Russia, going all the way back, as I said, to the 1920s. It's not widely known, but Suhe Bata, who was the Mongolian leader who led the Mongolian Revolution in 1920, actually traveled to Moscow and met Lenin. I mean, so there's that, very long historic connection. So it's a very strong connection between the two countries, and so it's an easier message if say Wang Yi were to go to Ulaanbaatar and talk in this way. It might be seen as rather more, I won't say threatening, but more China dominating Mongolia and say you've got to do what we say. But Russia, because it's the old friend, because it's not as mighty as China is, especially in that area. It's the kind of message that the Russians can give, and which the Mongolians can put their pride to one side and listen to and accept.
And also, I find the reaction to it is interesting because it's clear Mongolia is defied the ICC, right, to not to arresting Putin, instead
Yeah.
giving him the red carpet treatment, etc. Other than Ukraine is the one that warned or reminded the Mongolian, you need to arrest Putin. But I don't hear much else other countries saying anything. Why is that? They just
Well, because because they realise that if they started complaining about this, the Mongolians would be even more obliged to take a stand against them than they are already. I mean, this has been a debacle, actually. I mean, it's demonstrated how completely empty the Rome Statute and the ICC actually are. When it comes down to it, countries follow their national interests, and that's what the Mongolians are doing.
yeah. Hopefully they come to their senses after Putin's visit.
Oh, I think they will. I mean, this is where again the Russians are good at this kind of thing. The best film I've ever seen on Genghis Khan, which is
Mhm.
a biography film, was a film made by a Russian director, which
Oh,
was a Russian, Mongolian, and Chinese co-production. It was
oh, okay.
fascinating, and it brought actors and resources from all of these three countries. So the Russians, it was a Russian project, but the Russians do know how to bring together everybody and make them work with each other in this part of the world. They do it quite well.
I need to look into that.
Yeah.
I'm interested in watching it. Uh, Turkey. Turkey just applied to join the BRICS. Now we talk about the BRICS as temporarily suspend the, to let any country in, but it's just trying to work their own internal process out, right? Eventually they will let more people in. So Turkey now applied to join the BRICS. What's remarkable about this is I don't see much report about that in the Western mainstream media, as if I think this should be a very, very important major event because Turkey is a NATO member, an important NATO member, but now wants to join BRICS. What's your take?
Well, on the first point, I mean, this is the problem about the media here now, is that it is so manipulated and so controlled that important news, and this is, as you correctly say, very important, very big news, just isn't mentioned when it's inconvenient. The whole BRICS summit, the whole BRICS thing is barely discussed in the media here. In Britain, the Financial Times sometimes runs pieces on it. But if you're looking at the rest of the media, the BBC, the Daily Telegraph, the Guardian, the Times, you wouldn't know that the BRICS even existed. It seems astonishing, but it's true. It's a very, very big event.
Mhm.
It's Turkey making this application. Now, it's not going to happen in Kazan. By the way, just to say, Kazan is the capital of Russian Tatarstan. The Tatar people are a Turkish language people. So, this is an important moment when, the BRICS meet in Kazan, which is a Russian city, but also a Tatar city with Turkish connections. And the Turks come along and say that we want to join the BRICS. And the thing that makes this very important is, in a kind of a sense, joining the BRICS is what makes sense for Turkey. It's joining its natural home. The Europeans don't want Turkey. I mean, NATO wants Turkey, but it wants Turkey in a purely manipulative sense because, they want to keep Turkey to control access to the Black Sea and to have the basis on which they can terrorize the Arab nations and all that kind of thing. But they don't really have any fundamental feeling or connection to Turkey. Erdogan has not always been the wisest leader that Turkey has had. He's played Turkishness, and he's tried to expand Turkish influence in Turkish areas. And he said that he's going to stand up for the Turkic people in Central Asia and in the Caucasus and Xinjiang region,
Yeah.
annoying many people in the process. But it goes beyond him because this Eurasianist movement that has been there in Turkey actually precedes him, and it has been getting stronger and continues to get stronger every year, and it has supporters in every political party and political force now. So I'm not saying that this is, Turkey is totally committed to BRICS. There will still be some people in Turkey who hanker after the old connection with the US, but it's their natural home. It's the place where they can work, they can talk to the Russians, they can talk to the Chinese, they can talk to the Iranians who are their neighbors, and they can feel that they're taken seriously, that they're accepted, that they're a major player, that the economic links and connections make sense. So the further it goes, the less reversible it becomes.
And going back to this mainstream media thing, I mean, for events like this, they should talk about it. I think it's a good opportunity for them to discuss why does Turkey do this, right? Why do we treat Turkey this way? The the EU has been rejecting Turkey for all these years, but their way of handling this, I guess, in the West eye, this is bad news for them. So their way of handling is just not to talk about it, right? That's how they deal with the problem now. Just
Well,
not talk about it.
the way they talk, the way they handle it is they don't talk about the fact that Turkey's moving to the BRICS. They don't talk about changes and shifts in Turkish public opinion and
Mm.
Turkish sentiment. I mean, there's an American warship in Izmir, one of the most politically left-wing and liberal cities in Turkey, by the way. I've been there, and
Mhm.
the people are out protesting the presence of this American warship in Izmir, which is fascinating. I mean, it wouldn't have happened for 50 years ago, but it is now. They don't want to talk about any of that.
Mhm.
What they do talk about is the fact that Erdogan is a dictator, that he's a crazy man. There is a powerful group in Washington. There's even a lobby group that's actually been set up and circulates media things, which is headed by John Bolton, which wants to regime change him. that's what they want to do. I mean, that's their idea. So it's all about this terrible man, Erdogan. Let's get him out of the way, and then everything will go back to as the way it was 20, 30 years ago. Turkey, this loyal
Mhm.
member of NATO, does whatever we tell it. It applies to join the EU, and of course, it's always pushed back to the end of the queue because nobody really wants it in the EU, but it just loyally follows our orders, and that's as far I think as they can think.